A.2.2. Why do anarchists emphasize liberty? An anarchist can be regarded, in Bakunin's words, as a, open quote, fanatic lover of freedom, considering it as the unique environment within which the intelligence, dignity, and happiness of mankind can develop and increase, end quote. Because human beings are thinking creatures, to deny them liberty is to deny them the opportunity to think for themselves, which is to deny their very existence as humans. For anarchists, freedom is a product of our humanity because, open quote, the very fact that a person has a consciousness of self, of being different from others, creates a desire to act freely. The craving for liberty and self-expression is a very fundamental and dominant trait, end quote. For this reason, anarchism, open quote, proposes to rescue the self-respect and independence of the individual from all restraint and invasion by authority. Only in freedom can man grow to his full stature. Only in freedom will he learn to think and move and give the very best of himself. Only in freedom will he realize the true force of the social bonds which tie men together and which are the true foundations of a normal social life. End quote. Thus, for anarchists, freedom is basically individuals pursuing their own good in their own way. Doing so calls forth the activity and power of individuals as they make decisions for and about themselves and their lives. Only liberty can ensure individual development and diversity. This is because when individuals govern themselves and make their own decisions, they have to exercise their minds, and this can have no other effect than expanding and stimulating the individuals involved. As Malatesta put it, open quote, for people to become educated to freedom and the management of their own interests, they must be left to act for themselves, to feel responsibility for their own actions in the good or bad that comes from them. They'd make mistakes, but they'd understand from the consequences where they'd go wrong and try out new ways, end quote. So, liberty is the precondition for the maximum development of one's individual potential, which is also a social product and can be achieved only in and through community. A healthy, free community will produce free individuals who, in turn, will shape the community and enrich the social relationships between the people of whom it is composed. Liberties being socially produced, open quote, do not exist because they have been legally set down on a piece of paper, but only when they have become the ingrown habit of a people, and when any attempt to impair them will meet with the violent resistance of the populace. One compels respect from others when one knows how to defend one's dignity as a human being. This is not only true in private life, it has always been the same in political life as well. In fact, we owe all the political rights and privileges which we enjoy today in greater or lesser measures, not to the goodwill of their governments, but to their own strength, end quote. It is for this reason anarchists support the tactic of direct action, see section J.2, for, as Emma Goldman argued, we have, open quote, as much liberty as we are willing to take. Anarchism therefore stands for direct action, the open defiance of and resistance to all laws and restrictions, economic, social, and moral. It requires integrity, self-reliance, and courage. In short, it calls for free, independent spirits, and only persistent resistance can finally set us free. Direct action against the authority in the shop, direct action against the authority of the law, direct action against the invasive, meddlesome authority of our moral code is the logical, consistent method of anarchism, end quote. Direct action is, in other words, the application of liberty, used to resist oppression in the here and now, as well as the means of creating a free society. It creates the necessary individual mentality and social conditions in which liberty flourishes. Both are essential as liberty develops only within society, not in opposition to it. Thus, Murray Bookchin writes, open quote, What freedom, independence, and autonomy people have in a given historical period is the product of long social traditions and a collective development, which is not to deny that individuals play an important role in that development, indeed, are ultimately obliged to do so if they wish to be free." End quote. But freedom requires the right kind of social environment in which to grow and develop. Such an environment must be decentralized and based on the direct management of work by those who do it. For centralization means coercive authority, hierarchy, whereas self-management is the essence of freedom. Self-management ensures that the individuals involved use and so develop all their abilities, particularly their mental ones. Hierarchy, in contrast, substitutes the activities and thoughts of a few for the activities and thoughts of all the individuals involved. Thus, rather than developing their abilities to the full, hierarchy marginalizes the many and ensures that their development is blunted. See also section B.1. It is for this reason that anarchists oppose both capitalism and statism. As the French anarchist Sébastien Faure noted, authority, open quote, dresses itself in two principal forms, the political form, that is the state, and the economic form, that is private property, end quote. Capitalism, like the state, is based on centralized authority, i.e. of the boss over the worker, the very purpose of which is to keep the management of work out of the hands of those who do it. This means, open quote, that the serious, final, complete liberation of the workers is possible only upon one condition, that of the appropriation of capital, that is, of raw material and all the tools of labor, including land, by the whole body of the workers, end quote. Hence, as Noam Chomsky argues, open quote, a consistent anarchist must oppose private ownership of the means of production and the wage slavery which is a component of this system as incompatible with the principle that labor must be freely undertaken and under the control of the producers, end quote. Thus, liberty for anarchists means a non-authoritarian society in which individuals and groups practice self-management, i.e., they govern themselves. The implications of this are important. First, it implies that an anarchist society will be non-coercive, that is, one in which violence or the threat of violence will not be used to convince individuals to do anything. Second, it implies that anarchists are firm supporters of individual sovereignty and that, because of this support, they also oppose institutions based on coercive authority, i.e., hierarchy. And finally, it implies that anarchists' opposition to government means only that they oppose centralized, hierarchical, bureaucratic organizations or government. They do not oppose self-government through confederations of decentralized, grassroots organizations, so long as these are based on direct democracy rather than the delegation of power to representatives. See section A.2.9 for more on anarchist organization. For authority is the opposite of liberty, and hence any form of organization based on the delegation of power is a threat to the liberty and dignity of the people subjected to that power. Anarchists consider freedom to be the only social environment within which human dignity and diversity can flower. Under capitalism and statism, however, there is no freedom for the majority, as private property and hierarchy ensure that the inclination and judgment of most individuals will be subordinated to the will of a master, severely restricting their liberty and making impossible the, open quote, full development of all the material, intellectual, and moral capacities that are latent in every one of us, end quote. That is why anarchists seek to ensure, open quote, that real justice and real liberty might come on earth. For it is all false, all unnecessary, this wild waste of human life, of bone and sinew and brain and heart, this turning of people into human rags, ghosts, piteous caricatures of the creatures they had it in them to be on the day they were born, that what is called economy, the massing up of things, is in reality the most frightful spending, the sacrifice of the maker to the made, the loss of all the finer and nobler instincts in the gain of one revolting attribute, the power to count and calculate, end quote. See Section B for further discussion of the hierarchical and authoritarian nature of capitalism and statism.